This is how you fix Mythic Plus forever. That's right. Mythic Plus is doing better. I think it's Season 2. They put it in a better place, not as difficult. The ramp up in difficulty is much more even keel. The rewards are offered earlier. The way the affixes are working is a little bit better. I think they've done a lot to correct Mythic Plus, at least from the Season 1 War Within debacle. That was Season 1. But here it is. Dear WoW devs from Marcellian, how to fix Mythic Plus forever.
Welcome back to Marcellian Online, and this is probably the best Mythic Plus season we've ever had so far, kind of rivaling Dragonflight Season 3. And still something feels off, and I do believe that Mythic Plus is destroying WoW the way it is right now, but there is a solution, and it can actually be fixed forever, and we already have the solution to Mythic Plus. It's just that it's not applied for some reason. Why is it bad? Why is it...
Yeah, I mean, look, he talked about how it's affecting WoW. I actually think Mythic Plus is probably the most popular seasonal content in the game right now. It's probably more popular than raiding. Like, if you look at the numbers and statistics, I bet you more players participate in the Mythic Plus system than the raiding system. Because raiding is, typically more time-consuming and everything, so it requires a bigger time commitment, especially if you're going to, at least try to do heroic raid. Whereas Mythic Plus is a generic, you don't need friends, you don't need to know anybody, which is typical of WoW players. We don't have friends, so going in, doing a 40-minute Mythic Plus run, 30-minute Mythic Plus run is pretty typical, I feel like, of most people, and that's how most people advance in gear, and honestly, it's better than raiding when it comes to gearing out if you push your keys high enough, so... when Mythic Plus is hurting, the game is certainly hurting, that's for sure.
Wrong. And when can we get those dungeon sets? This is essentially an opinion piece on the state of Mythic Plus and what it means to have this type of system in a game like World of Warcraft. I'm not sure if this video will ever reach devs or anybody like that, but it is our attempt to feedback what we believe about Mythic Plus, what it could do for the game, why it just doesn't work with World of Warcraft, and how can it be fixed. Now, whether or not we're wrong, you can let us know in the comment section down below, because I'm pretty sure you have some ideas as well. But the way things move and the way things keep going is if we initiate a discussion. So what is the discussion about Mythic Plus in Season 2 right now, considering all of the good things that happened to the season and how actually the season is, ironically, one of the best ones yet so far, and that has to do a lot with the changes that happened prior to the season being released, with the rewards being increased when it comes to crests and the dungeons being nerfed considerably every week. And
it's important. I think most people will agree, and a lot of people have the same opinion. Dragonflight, whether or not you like the story or not, Mythic Plus wise, Dragonflight was peak. Dragonflight Season 3 especially was one of the best Mythic Plus seasons I ever played, and it was the most Mythic Plus I ever did. Outside of Shadowlands, and that's because, like, I had fucking been, like, fired from my job, COVID going down, and I'm just sitting at home, degeneratively running Mythic Plus dungeons over and over, and Torghast, oh my god, I think about it, it's fucking PTSD. But anyways, Season 3, Dragonflight, fantastic. Why? Because the rewards were good, and the dungeons were so, I don't know, they were so well-tuned for Mythic Plus. Like, very easy runs, quick. Give me Ruby Life Sanctum, run that shit quick. It was a good time. And I feel like this season is probably the closest we've got to that since then.
Probably might still be nerfed.
Sam gave Cambro PTSD.
I would suspect it won't be nerfed that much. Why is this system an actual problem for WoW, and why does it not feel like it belongs?
Dragonflight Season Plus was definitely most fun. Yep, I agree. Yeah, do you ever play off stream? Yeah, but I haven't lately. I've been kind of busy. My favorite thing was Legion BFA. Well, Legion was great for Mythic Plus because it was the introduction of it. I don't disagree with that. Legion Mythic Plus was fun for what it was. The first time we ever saw this shit. I was in law school at the time during Legion, and Mythic Plus gave me the ability to be able to gear out without raiding because I had no time to raid back then. So yeah, I think back on Legion Mythic Plus fondly, but it was so janky at times because it was the first version of it too, so it had its issues, but it was fun, yes.
Is that this system is old and it has been created in World of Warcraft Legion. Mythic Plus, at its core design, is an infinitely scaling content that essentially just does not have a cap as to how high you can go. When you introduce this type of system into an RPG type game, your player will think, oh, I can just be better, do better, and keep going higher and higher. And that worked for Legion because in Legion, your player power also scaled technically infinitely, even if it was by very small increments, considering that you
Yeah.
have artifact power grinds at the time that you can just never stop farming and never have your character go
Right.
higher and higher in power.
I'm convinced Legion was still the strongest we ever were in the game. Like, not just like numbers wise, in terms of like, yeah, we were pumping our dicks out at the end because the AP grind was infinite and you could literally grind this shit out and become a god in the game. But even lore wise, I feel like it was the strongest we ever were. Like, just, we had the strongest weapons in the history of Azeroth, like, chronically, ever. The best weapons. We had crazy armor. We were fighting against a Sargeras and the Burning Legion and all that shit. Like, infinite threats, infinite power. It was insane. And I look back on it, I still think like that was our strongest point. And I wonder, draining the legendaries, if that was the right thing to do, if we're gonna regret that shit.
Go higher and higher in power, with each artifact power inserted getting you maybe a little bit of extra stamina, a little bit of extra main.
Yeah, not chronically, canonically. Yeah, maybe chronic. Chronic back pain is what I was thinking of, because that's what I feel right now.
And things like that.
Yeah,
even though the
canonically.
increases were very small, in your head as a player, you always had the idea that you can always be stronger, always be better, play a little bit more, get a little bit more stats, do a dungeon a little bit higher. Obviously, that's gone since we don't have any more external player power systems that we can infinitely chase or grind. And
Right.
that is also something that players have been asking about for years to come back, much to the dismay of us who played through it and remember grimly how it affected our overall gameplay.
Azeroth needs our help.
But that's why it
It's funny too, by the way, talking about Mythic Plus and everything that happened in Legion, Blizzard themselves admitted that they never expected players to reach the levels of AP grind that they did towards the end of Legion. Like, the system was intended to be infinitely grindable, but the sheer degeneracy of the WoW player base even surpassed Blizzard's expectations. They did not expect people to hit the levels of AP power that they did, and as quickly as they did. So Blizzard themselves admits, they're like, shit, man, you guys became way too strong in that expansion.
worked in Legion, and that's why it's not working now, because we don't have that power anymore, and the devs know this as to why. I believe it was back in BFA, in a dev interview, or at least a blue post, the developer said that they don't like it when players push plus 30 keys, and that was back in the day before the Mythic Plus dungeon squish, when players could actually push plus 30s and higher.
Right.
And following up that particular point in time, they've nerfed dungeons in the sense that how high players can continuously progress through them, and lo and behold, now we even have a dungeon squish where players are barely able to push past 20s, and that makes sense because WoW is not an infinitely grindable game for infinite player power, so it doesn't make sense for a content that's endgame to infinitely scale. Now,
Right.
whatever the solution to that is, it has to happen, whether we just cap Mythic Plus at plus 20s and completely redesign so that every couple of dungeon keys you unlock a new thing. It could be a new mount, a new transmog, a new eye level, a new item, new types of crests, more crest drops or anything like that. A lot of things can happen to change how the Mythic Plus system affects your endgame progress, since raids are not infinitely scalable either. They stop at Mythic.
Yeah.
And Plus should also stop at a certain point, or if they will not stop, then let the players roam free and infinitely chase this continent scale higher and higher, like the way Torghast was supposed to be initially, where there was no limit to how high you could climb the tower, and you would get powers
I
every
agree.
floor to give you more and more damage, more HP, and you would just become a literal demigod destroying things all around in Torghast. If that doesn't happen for Mythic Plus, the system
Yeah.
will for
I mean, say what you want about Torghast. Part of the problem with Torghast was Blizzard forced us to regrind that shit over and over, which made it not fun. But when you did get the right anima powers in Torghast and you got all the right shit combined perfectly, Torghast was fun. You would hit some modes in that game version where it was like, oh shit, I feel like a god right now, pulling entire rooms, pulling off your anima abilities and all that stuff. It was pretty damn cool. Yeah, Torghast. Yeah, the problem was exactly what you say, Torghast, that they just made us go back in there over and over, and it just felt so repetitively stupid. That's why it wasn't fun.
ever be doomed to kind of be a little
It was never
stressor
fun
on your
after the
brain
first
because it's
season of it,
not
yeah.
really infinitely scaling content. It's not really an endgame system that rewards you with a capped system that you can progress to and be done with. So if it's neither and a little bit of both, it's just gonna always have problems when it comes to balancing and tuning, because if you did have Mythic Plus stop at a particular level, you can actually tune and balance classes around that dungeon because you already would have the numbers already set in ahead of time, and that would make dealing damage, having defensives, not having to worry about one-shots, all of those issues that we've been having over the years, manageable at the very least, and at the very most, gone completely. And that's just in the terms of scaling content and how that works in an MMO. As much as I would like to see a roguelike content game in WoW that can just go as far as your player can grind it. There are also problems with gearing. Problems that we've been having in the game for years, not just plaguing Mythic Plus, because prior to Mythic Plus, if you remember, we had a little thing called arenas, which didn't die when Mythic Plus was released, but they might as well have, and
Damn,
I would
yeah.
know because I was a PvP player.
Poor
And
arenas.
arenas and PvP players always had a problem with PvE gear that crossed expansions past Mythic Plus's release, where I remember back in the Battle for Azeroth days where arena players had to farm Battle for the Zara lore for a tank trinket to be able to play in arenas and have an extra defensives.
Right.
Having to do a content you don't like to perform in a content you do like doesn't really feel rewarding, especially if you don't like that content. As a Mythic Plus player, you don't want to do raids if you don't like them. And if you don't want to do raids as a Mythic Plus player, you don't get the gear, the best gear in the game.
I mean, to be fair though, I still feel like getting the best gear in the game should require to play almost all the game. Like I just like if you really want to go best in slot, I feel like part of the fantasy of an MMO is yes, you got to go kill this guy, then you got to go to the top of this volcano and kill this dragon up here, and then you got to venture deep into these mines and fight off this army of goblins or whatever. Like I do feel like even in terms of lore, like if you really want the best in every single slot in your character, you should have to do all the content. I feel like it's kind of babying the player base when you just okay, don't worry about it. You could do just Mythic Plus and get all your biz, or you could just do raiding and get all your biz. It's just, like, you can get geared either way just by doing one or the other. You will be geared as shit, but if you really want to just max out every statistic to the max, yeah, you should have to do everything.
Because myth tracks don't drop in dungeons and you only get one myth track per week in the vault, and it's a choice of one of 3. That's not endgame gearing. And let's say we can accept that that's the way
You should have to do pet battles. No, I don't agree with that. You should not have to do pet battles to get your biz gear. That one's we're going a bit too far there, Sylar.
to gear with Mythic Plus, but then it would be at odds with Mythic rating, considering that as a Mythic raider, I can maybe get 2 to maybe 3 items per week, plus the vault as well, and it didn't feel like there was a cap for it. But that's a more difficult discussion to have. Fundamentally, the problem will always exist because the gear is...
That's true, Konesia. Back in vanilla, PvP gear was better than raid gear. There were pieces of PvP gear that you wanted to get so you could do raiding. This is true. I mean, yeah, that existed back in vanilla, and people didn't bitch about it. People still talk about vanilla being the greatest, but it's certain that I wouldn't want that today, though. I'll tell you right now, please, Blizzard, do not make PvP gear required for raiding. That would not be a good time.
Is interchangeable between the two, and PvP actually fixed that, where now PvP gear has an extra text that says your item level increases when in arenas or battlegrounds to like an absurd level past mythic rating, by the way, so much so that you're not supposed to farm PvE gear to do PvP, and that is great for PvP players that don't want to do raids. Why can we not have that for dungeons as well? More than this, PvP also has an extra set bonus for your rings. If you equip the 2 PvP rings, you have an extra bonus that affects you in arenas and battlegrounds that is so good that you definitely don't want to farm.
He's talking about trinkets. Okay, yeah, I was like, what double ring? Yeah, it's a double trinket bonus. Okay.
Raids for those tank trinkets anymore. So that problem was solved, and we need that for Mythic Plus as well. Now this can take the form of many different solutions. We could have dungeon tier set bonuses that drop in dungeons at dungeon rates, even if it's like 1 myth track per week. Have a tier set bonus that gives you, and I'm gonna do this just as an example, just to make my point across, but it can be more interesting than this, all of your stats are increased by 10% while inside the dungeon if you wear this dungeon item. You can still use raid gear to go inside of the dungeon, but if you want to push keys, you have to just do that dungeon or those dungeons throughout the entirety of the season to get that extra power that is only available in Mythic Plus keys. So you can just copy paste the bonuses from PvP and apply them into PvE. Obviously, this can be even more interesting. We can have actual different tier set bonuses for dungeons as well. We can have different powers. We can have affixes in dungeons that boost you in some way. Every 5 levels, players get a occasional 10% haste proc if they're wearing at least 2 dungeon pieces. We can have dungeon levels, like every 500 Mythic Plus score, you unlock a new bonus that lets you push higher and higher keys. If the keys could...
a dungeon renown track, that's kind of what I mean, they already gave us a raid renown track, so I could imagine a dungeon renown track, sure, and then advancing through it. But then that Blizzard would like it because it would time gate shit more and make people do more Mythic Plus to be able to get the renown track filled. But I don't know if I want that, because it's kind of nice to be able, especially if you know people. I don't know, maybe you're gonna get carried, maybe you're not, but to be able to jump into Mythic Plus like mid-season and pick it up. If you have a renown track, there will be catch-up mechanics, I'm sure, but that's another thing that's kind of a barrier to entry then for Mythic Plus if you didn't jump in on day one.
Could be infinitely scalable. There are so many ways that we can fix Mythic Plus. We just need to break it apart from raiding, because it's
shit? Possible emergency alert, possible explosion. What the fuck? What the heck? Look, you guys think I'm fucking around. I don't know. I didn't hear anything. Did World War III just start? Are we getting nuked? Should I be running? That was probably, it probably happened in, it looks like the explosion happened in the basement, which is where you would typically find a meth lab, right? Yeah, we have basements in Michigan, so that's probably what it was. Okay, well, that's good. Here we go.
Literally a different endgame pillar as opposed to raiding. Of course, there are players like Marcellian and myself who like to both raid and Mythic Plus, but we would be totally fine if there would be 2 different gear sets, because if you do that, then you make the content itself more farmable. I would like to play more dungeons to get the gear for dungeons, and I would like to play more raids to get the gear for raids. You're not essentially killing the game. Now, of course, there will always be players that will complain that, oh my god, now I have to farm 2 sets of gear. Bro, this is a video game. What do you expect? The problem with WoW's endgame design that spams across Mythic...
No, but I feel like he's a little bit out of touch with this. Maybe, you know, because he plays the game a lot. So, yeah, farming 2 sets of gear, like I said, it kind of takes away that whole, well, like, you guys always see me do it. I'll push raid really hard at the start of the season, and then once we're done with, like, getting AOTC, I'll jump into Mythic Plus. The problem with this system is that would stop me from doing that, because if we're midway through the season and now I got to start a new grind to get new gear for Mythic Plus, instead of just being able to take my badass raid gear and basically start a little bit ahead in Mythic Plus, yeah, that would hurt progression to Mythic Plus for sure. And I feel like I said, it would create another barrier that would stop raiders from participating in Mythic Plus or Mythic Plusers participating in raid.
Plus fixing and gearing and all of that, but
Being
of
carried
course
to
is
Mythic Plus,
present
you mean?
here
Yeah.
is that the game tries to be more than what it is.
This system is not for Greg from accounting. Very true, Tidewell. Yeah, this is not for your average WoW player. That's for sure. This is for somebody who plays the game a lot.
It should just be a video game. If we keep catering to all sorts of players, which it's great to have more people in the game, don't get me wrong, but we lose the focus of what the game is supposed to be, and it stops being a video game where we play the video game, and it becomes more of a convenient hobby that you chase off after your 8-hour shift. It's not supposed to be convenient. It's supposed to be a challenge. It's supposed to entice you to play, to log in, to overcome something, to acquire something. Not, oh my god, I wish they would just make gearing easier so that I can gear 12 of my alts in a month so I can stop playing. That's not what a video game is supposed to be.
They'll never do this.
Break apart,
yeah, I agree. They'll never do this. There's no way. First of all, it creates another whole set of design. You guys saw how much they had to freaking nerf and tweak the tier set bonuses over and over and over. I imagine they got to do that for 2 separate systems now. Yeah, they'll never. This is going to create so much work. It just won't happen.
Mythic Plus from the rest of the endgame system, the better it can be balanced and tuned so that it feels fair and, ironically, accessible to people as well. And in conclusion, to fix Mythic Plus forever, we need 2 main changes to the dungeons. Not a series of 10,000 things, just 2 big things. One would be dungeon-specific gear that is stronger in dungeons. It can take the form of dungeon tier sets. It can take the form of PvP affixes to gear, where in keys you get 10, 20 more eye levels than in raids if the gear is on you while you are inside the dungeon. And the second thing would be to redesign how Mythic Plus scales. If we're going to have
Also, dungeon specific gear where your bonus only works when you're inside the dungeon, that sucks too. Because part of the cool thing about getting raid tier set bonus is when you're in the open world as well, it applies. So you do cool stuff, it fucks with your rotation, you do extra different things in a different way. If you have a set bonus that only works when you're in dungeons, I feel like that eliminates some of the coolness of getting the gear in the first place. And then, because then it never applies, and also then you got to do a different rotation outside of the dungeon than inside the dungeon. And that just seems off.
have infinite scaling where we'll see how far we can push.
I have a way to fix Mythic Plus. I'll say it towards the end
Which
here.
I am for, by the way. Have a system in place in dungeons and only in dungeons to infinitely scale the player power somehow. It will have to be only in dungeons because you cannot infinitely scale your power in raids, since raids cap at a certain point. Although that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if I farm for 3 months player power that I can just turbo annihilate a mythic raid boss. Isn't that the essence of an RPG, especially an MMORPG based on power fantasy? But I digress. Have a way to infinitely scale player power, even if it's by small increments. It can be a dungeon affix, it can be an item bonus that scales with your key level, it can be whatever you want. Torghast, the alpha version before it was released and it became mature, was possibly the best example of infinitely scalable content that was fun. But what do you think? Are these two things enough to actually fix Mythic Plus forever? And if we need more things, let us know down in the comment section below, because I think the game is actually doing amazing nowadays, and we're just missing that one little bit to grab the extra 5 million players that have stopped playing and get them back into the game, because WoW has the best gameplay out of all of the games on the market right now, possibly, even though that might be a WoW player is biased, because there is a reason why people keep playing it despite these issues, despite the story being lacking, despite the world having less personality, despite the game becoming a little bit more kid-friendly, or a lot more kid-friendly over the years. There is a reason.
It's not necessarily kid-friendly, it's Greg-friendly. It's people who've got other shit going on in their life, which is the majority of the player base. It's an aging player base. And so it's become more friendly to them. You know, it's less of a grind than it used to be. I wouldn't say that, yeah, kid-friendly. I would just say that's more time-friendly.
Reason why people play WoW, and it's because of combat. If we can extend that into a better, more fleshed out endgame systems, it can be changed and fixed forever. And if you want to push into plus 10 keys and don't know exactly how to tackle it, especially from the perspective of a Windwalker monk, we made a video from my perspective when we did our first plus 10 key in the first week of the season, and the challenges that almost wiped us and how we dealt with them.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Flame from Marcellian and that, and they do a good job. And I think he's got cool opinions, but this one just seems like a little bit out of touch. I feel like giving a specific Mythic Plus tier set and all that stuff would just create, first off, a lot of work on the devs, so it'll never happen. And second off, a bonus that only applies when you're inside just feels like it's anticlimactic. Like, that makes the gear less fun to get in the first place. You want that bonus to apply outside as well. To me, Mythic Plus, the fix, take away depletions, which they're kind of starting to do. They did it for the top end, you know, won't deplete past a certain number. Just get rid of depletions completely. And then a second, I feel like if somebody leaves a key, or the key is broken, you should be able to invite people in to at least finish it out for your vault slot. And I've been saying that for a while now. I think that if the key is broken, just allow it to be backfilled with people to finish out the vault slot, and then that's it. You don't need to get all the other gear, that's fine, but having a key broken towards the end and somebody leaves because they were only there for their IO, and then the rest of the people wanted it for the vault slot, just feels so bad. It's so bad. It hurts a lot. Affixes are a thing. Maybe, you know, they're doing better with affixes. They're not as annoying. At least they have kiss curse mechanics to them now. If they got rid of affixes completely, I wouldn't care. But that's another fix I know, as people have mentioned in the chat. If you want to time Mythic Plus keys easily, you need to be chewing smacking sunflower seeds. That's right. Use code Samiccus to check out for 10% off. That's right, Kite the Mage. That's it. I'll link this in the chat. Good video.